Okay. Am I
Well,
am I on camera?
yes, you are. You look great.
Well, thank you. I've got one of these smart cameras, and some days I wake up and it's dumb.
That's true. I like that. This is going to be a good show. Well, welcome to another episode of Wisdom on the Front Porch. And today we have
Mute
Maxwell
my
with
audio
us.
button.
And
Group.
Maxwell, tell people a
Voiceover
little
off.
bit about yourself and who you are. Oh, we just, you're muted, Maxwell. We'll have to get you to unmute.
How about now? Am I
There
unmuted?
you go. That sounds great.
I'm sorry. I was trying to turn off the screen reader that helps me navigate the computer so that it wouldn't
Oh,
interrupt our talk, and I pressed the wrong button. So I'm sorry about that.
that's
And
okay. It's all good.
yeah, yeah. So I think the question is about my background or story. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I am a blind person who grew up in a family of carnival owners. My main goal in life was to be part of the family business. I also knew from an early age that I would lose most, if not all, of my vision to retinitis pigmentosa. But with the encouragement of friends, family, teachers, and scoutmasters, I graduated from a traditional high school and a traditional college. And I'm also one of the few blind Eagle Scouts. I was blessed to be part of the business until my dad passed away in 2003. And by 2006, we were pretty much out of the carnival business. And I needed to find something else to do with myself. So I started helping people sell their used rides. And I figured that was something I could do because when we went out of business, we had rides in our yard I had to sell. But, being 2007, everybody's saying, Max, you need to have a website. And as a blind person back then, accessibility was almost non-existent. So I had to teach myself to code HTML just to get online. And I've been
Wow.
educating people about accessibility on pretty much a daily basis ever since. Besides building the website, I also had to learn things like recruiting clients, setting fees, writing copy, having a blog, social media, and all the other stuff that goes into being an online business owner, as I'm sure your audience is aware. And people were impressed and asked me to share more about my life as a blind entrepreneur. And that led to a second website as theblindblogger.net, which was a name people had been using for me as a form of shorthand because I was the only blind person they knew who was also a blogger. It was just a natural. And since then, I've written 4 books. I've traveled the country solo. I've spoken and sung at national conferences. I've been on hundreds of podcasts. I've taught people to be podcast guests, and I eventually started my own show called What's Your Excuse? In the last few years, I've been drawn or pushed into the world of accessibility much deeper, depending on how you look at it. I now am a contributing writer for several online publications on the subject of accessibility. I do site evaluations for audioi.com as well as for my own clients at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. I love doing public speaking and sharing my knowledge and experience. And I also really enjoy having podcast interviews or having conversations with podcast hosts so I can entertain, inspire, motivate, or educate their audience. So I really look forward to our conversation.
Oh, I do too. Wow, that was a lot. Um, I'm not even sure where to start from there, but we're going to jump right in and go. Oh, wow. So tell us about the blindness that you have, because I've heard the term before. Where does it come from? How did it start?
Right. So I have retinitis pigmentosa or RP. It started gradually. By 4 or 5 years old, I was falling down and running into more stuff than the rest of the kids in the families. So they had me checked and found out that I had RP. My vision loss was gradual at first, and then about the time I would have been going into junior high school, I had a big drop off in vision.
Hmm.
Met the standard for being legally blind and started learning how to navigate with a white cane, learning to read Braille, and transitioning from print textbooks to Braille or audio textbooks. And my vision stayed pretty much constant where I could see some things if they were large or if it was a high contrast level until I went off to college. And by the time I graduated from college, it was down to what it is now, which is technically light perception, but I find people have trouble understanding light perception. So I just say I have no functional vision, or I'm totally blind. And the best example I can give people is I can tell if my LED lamp is on or off, but only if I look directly where I know that the lamp is sitting when I turn it on or off.
Oh,
Because, so I can see really bright things, really large things, but no color shapes or shadows. And I feel like the fact that I lost my vision first gradually and then more quickly over time, I had to learn how to adjust and how to solve problems either on my own or with the help of others who were well-meaning. And I feel like that's one of those skills that has really helped me as I've gotten into my later life because, as I'm sure you know, when it comes to solving a problem, there are always lots of solutions. The thing is, many of those solutions are things we don't want to do. So in the short term, you just have to decide to find a solution and take it instead of making excuses. And then as you grow as a person or a business owner, you'll find better solutions, or you'll generate enough income that you can pay people to do that stuff that you hate doing.
there
You
you
know,
go.
uh, another thing I think has really helped me throughout my life is I've been through a lot of adversity in business as well as the vision loss. And when you grow up in a family of carnival owners, the one thing you learn from an early age is that nobody cares about what's going on in your life. All they want to know is are you open? Can they ride the Ferris wheel, buy a funnel cake, or try to win a teddy bear on Thursday or Friday night? Other than that, nothing matters. And once you
Oh,
learn that from an early age, then it's like, okay, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to make opening. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get to this speaking event. I'm going to finish this book. So, it really forces you to find solutions. But um, it also has resulted in many times where no matter what I did, I still failed or came up short. And so then you learn how to deal with the adversity and you build up a practice and you build up that mental muscles to, how do you deal with setbacks when they come? And the thing I've learned is that the people that are really good at resilience, the people who are really great at bouncing back from bad experiences, they've done it a lot in their lives. I like to say that I've spent a lot of my life metaphorically looking up at the sky or where the sky should be while I'm on my back trying to get back up again. It's
yep.
and I feel like one of the best things I can teach people is my approach to finding the positive, to overcoming these setbacks that we'll have. Because if you build up a practice for it, then when really bad things happen, you're much more ready to deal with them, to absorb them, to overcome them, and then move forward. And I don't mean for anybody not to grieve if grief is required, or not to
Right.
feel bad about yourself or the other people if that's actually required. I'm just talking about a way to get through it a little more smoothly, a little sooner. And so what I like to tell people is finding the positive in life is like finding the TV remote. When you lose the TV remote, you know it's somewhere in the house, and you just keep looking for it until you find it.
Right.
And if you can't find it, then you ask the family to come in and help you look. Eventually, you're going to find it because you know it's there somewhere. And that's the same thing with our lives, whether it be our personal lives or our business lives. There is something positive happening to us pretty much every day, and in many cases, more than one something. But in the beginning, you have to make yourself look for them. You have to get out a piece of paper and write them down. You have to think about it. You have to concentrate on it. And if you start by saying at least one person is going to come into my life, or one event, or one bit of news is going to come to me today that's positive, and you find that one thing, then you can work up to three or five. And then you get to the point where you're expecting more positive things in your life. So you attract more positive things in your life. And as I said, you build up that mental toughness so that when you do have a real serious setback or tragedy, you're more prepared to live with it. And I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that most of the coaches or gurus make in this world is they make what they do sound too easy.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that.
Because as you know, and I think you will agree with me, you can take any personal development tool you want, and you can take that one tool and use it and get good at it. It'll work for you. but you can't take any of those tools and have it work for you the first day.
So true. So true. I know there's been a couple of masterminds or something I've been in, and they're talking about how to make it work and how it worked for them, and all you have to do is this or that. And it's true. All you have to do is this or that, but they don't tell you that it's going to take you 2 years to do this or that in order to make it happen. You know, that, oh wow, this person did it in 6 months. And it's like, well, they don't tell you about the 4 years before that 6 months that they've gone through all of this stuff to get to that. And yeah, so true.
Yeah, which is why I like to make sure that I share that. I also like to make sure people know that even the things I'm good at, the things I share with others, there are some days where those things trouble me. And a perfect
Oh,
example of this is I like to sing and I like to play around with writing songs using my voice rather than an instrument because I've never been able to learn to play an instrument. And my most recent song is called Don't Wait on Someday. And the song talks about, how we put things off and how there's never going to be a right time for us to do whatever that thing is. But yet here I am, the expert, and I look back at my emails. The first time I shared some of the lyrics from that song was August of 2023. So I was definitely putting this song off to someday, and the song was about not putting things off till someday. And so when I finished the third verse, I said, Max, this song ain't complete yet. I need to write a verse that lets people know that I had the same problem with this that they're having. So that's another thing I like to make sure I do is that, none of us are perfect. None of us follow our own understandings every single day. And some days we forget those important lessons and it bites us in the backside.
yes, it does. It does. Oh my goodness, yeah. So I have a question for you. I know that coming up, I don't know who is behind it or whatever, but I hear that all of our websites have to be accessible. And so we're wondering, well, what does accessible really mean? Can you kind of enlighten us on that?
I will do my best. There is a organization called the W3C, which many people who mess with websites are aware of, that offers courses that will tell you about accessibility. There's the WCAG, which is the accessibility guidelines. But the real thing about accessibility to me is that no one is ever going to achieve 100% or 95% or 90% accessibility on a website. And if they do achieve it, it's not going to stay there because any website worth visiting, the owner is constantly updating it, changing the look, adding more content, creating links to other people's sites that may not be as accessible as theirs. So for me, accessibility, I want y'all to think about usability. And there are a few things that I can tell you that if you'll focus on these things, you can then move on to some of the nuts and bolts stuff that you can find if you Google accessibility out there. But I think these things, and I think it's part of a message that's kind of evolved in my own mind because I used to tell people that when you improve accessibility, you improve the user experience for everyone else. But what I've learned through doing podcast interviews is that when you improve the website for the user experience of everyone, quite often you improve accessibility. So here are four things that I think are a great place to start as far as trying to achieve accessibility so that people with disabilities can visit your website, evaluate your products or services, decide if they want to purchase something from you, and then move smoothly through the process of either setting an appointment for more information or making a purchase. And so that they can do those things with confidence. Now, doesn't that pretty much sound like what we want for everybody that visits our website?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so that's why I'm starting to think of usability and accessibility as a balance beam or a teeter-totter or a seesaw because improving one improves the other and vice versa. So the first thing is that webmasters are going to tell you that you need lots of fancy doodads to keep people on your website. However, a lot of those fancy excuse me, I need to go back to my very first thing. The
Okay.
first thing is, yeah, I know. I've done this. I've done this explanation several times, but I've sang some of my songs 100 times and still messed up the fourth verse. So
That's right. We all do.
we all do. Yeah. So the first thing is make the most important thing the most important thing. So
Okay.
yeah. So your website should be focused on why do you want me to come there? Do you want me to buy a product? Do you want me to sign up to your email list? Do you want me to listen to your podcast? Do you want me to volunteer? Do you want me to campaign for a candidate? What is the main reason you want me on your website? And if you start with making the most important thing, you will eliminate a lot of the distractions that can get in the way of people using adaptive technology, whether that's people like me who have to use a screen reader, or those using screen magnification, or those who are hearing impaired who have to use transcriptions and closed captions, or people with motor control issues who use mechanical switch devices. Regardless of what it is, the simpler your website is, the easier it is for us to navigate and get to the things we want to. So
Okay.
focus on what do you want me on the website for, and eliminate everything else, especially from the homepage. The second thing is you want a simple design. As I mentioned, webmasters will love to tell you about fancy doodads that will keep people on your site or help them find other stuff on your site. And a lot of those things can be challenging for people with adaptive technology, such as one of my most common things that I run into is what's called a modal. That's a pop-up that I have to navigate through that
Hmm.
before I can get to the website itself. And some of those are not built where you can easily find, navigate to, and click the button to close them. So it's a simple thing that people use to try to trap email addresses so they can build their list and sell more stuff. But it's a thing that can turn people off who have trouble finding that button to get it the heck out of their way.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so most important thing, and then minimalist, and keep it simple. So the fewer items you have on your homepage, the better. The fewer items you have on subsequent pages, the better. Uh, the text is always better than images as long as it's actually text and not graphics masquerading as text.
Right.
Headings are important to everybody who visits the website because they let your visitors navigate to the things they need most more quickly. So these are things that will really help. And then a fourth thing, and this is the one thing that I tell people about that the fewest people already know about, because a lot of people know about alt text and GIFs, emoticons, and stickers and captchas, but very few people know that when you use adaptive technology, you don't generally have access to the mouse. So one of the best things you can do for accessibility is build your website for keyboard access first. And then if you want to add things like hover cards or access by using the swipe or the trackpad, you can always add that on top, but make sure you start with the keyboard approach. Otherwise, you may have people with a disability who visit your site and spend a lot of time on your site, but then can't purchase from your site and they get angry with your site and go somewhere else.
Yeah, that was really good. I had never thought about keyboard access first. Yeah, I know that one of my sites, um, and I don't know why I never really bothered to look at it on my phone. But this weekend I looked at it on my phone and it's like I can't do hardly anything with it. And it was really disappointing. It's like, well, gosh, if people have been having this issue, I really need to get that fixed because, half of our life is on our cell phones. Well, some
It's
more
called,
than half, but
and
yeah, instead of a
it's
laptop.
much, yeah, it's much more than half these days for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this is an area where accessibility leads to user experience, because if you simplify your website and limit the amount of information on each screen in your desktop version, that's going to make it much easier for people to navigate your website using their mobile devices.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I just started a website for my podcast, and it actually has on there to where I can go between the desktop or the lap or the cell phone view and see how it looks. And I'm really surprised sometimes there's a great big difference between the two. So without realizing I've been doing it, I'm simplifying it down so that it's the same on either one. Real easy to use. So that's really great points that you brought up. I actually think I have 6 points out of the four,
Uh,
but
And
but that's
back
okay.
yeah, and back to what I said earlier about usability leading to accessibility. You weren't thinking about accessibility. You were just thinking about people being able to use your website on their mobile devices. And as a
Right.
result, I guarantee you, you have improved the accessibility for people like me visiting your site.
Oh, good, good.
Yes,
Oh,
they balance
that's
each other out like that. So that's really cool. Here's another cool thing about accessibility and usability when it comes to mobile devices. If you give your users the opportunity to invert their text colors, say instead of black text on a white background, you can have them have white text on a black background. That's a higher contrast. It's more soothing to their eyes, and it helps them more easily visit your website on their mobile devices in extremely low or extremely bright light. So think about
okay.
somebody who's on their vacation, they're at the pool, they're in the car, they're wherever they may be, they may not have, the optimum light, and being able to invert your text will give them a better user experience on your website and make them more likely to want to do business with you.
Excellent. I've seen a few things that on my phone now that have popped up as the phone keeps upgrading every other day. It seems like, but it says, "Do you want this in dark mode?" And it's like, no, but now it makes sense why it would want it in there. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's like, okay, I'll have to be aware of that now. And I didn't
Right.
realize that you could do that, that you
Yes.
could give people the choice.
Yeah.
So,
Now, one other thing I want to give you credit for is you visited your own website and you did it on the desktop and the mobile device. So many people hire somebody to build their website, or they build their website on the back end and they never visit their own websites. And what's worse is most of them never use their own forms. And forms are really challenging, or can be, for people with disabilities using adaptive
yeah.
technology. And so what I tell people, I tell them two things about forms. One, if you're not sure you can create an accessible form on your own, then use Google Forms or TypePad or one of the other 4 or 5 really top forms building websites. Follow their instructions, and make sure that you label everything properly. And also, again, break your form up. If you have a long form, maybe it would be easier for everybody if it were in 2 or 3 pages instead of one long form. But then test your own form, sign up to your own email list, um, use your own scheduling thing, and make sure that all of that stuff works for you. Because
Yeah.
the more I talk about this stuff with podcast hosts, the more hosts tell me, I used to work at this company and we looked at our checkout process and we were appalled. Or I worked at this company that was selling furniture and they were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to abandoned shopping carts because nobody had ever tested our own checkout
Isn't
system.
that something? Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really great advice there. So, so let's say I've got my podcast, I'm starting it out. I want to have a really great website that lets people know what my podcast is about, how they can find my podcast, and maybe support my podcast. So what would be some of the things I would want to look at that would make it accessible to everybody?
Well, I think you just answered your own question. You would have a heading for each of those 3 things. And then
Oh,
you would have a text string that gives them a little more information. And then you would have a link that maybe takes them to another page with even more information, or with the opportunity to schedule a talk with you, or the opportunity to subscribe to, or listen to your past episodes. So that would just what you said. You've got 3 things
okay.
you wanted to do, so you'd have 3 headings,
Yeah,
and
so would you have
and
that all on one page or would you put it on different pages?
I would put it all on one page because
Okay,
besides those 3 things, you're going to have a home thing, which is going to be your first heading. And then you're going to have these second level headings, or H2s, for the 3 things you just mentioned. And then you might have a heading for your personal information, or the story behind your blog. Or you
right.
might have a heading for your contact information if you want them to be able to to contact you without going through your other pages. And you might have a heading for your social media links. So you'd end up with six, maybe seven headings slash links on your homepage, and that would be perfectly fine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So here I am. I've got a podcast and I don't know what to do. So I come to you. What would be the benefits of coming to you versus anybody else? I mean, so I guess what I'm asking is what would be your ideal customer?
Right. Well, because podcasters are generally very limited for time or with funds to invest in hiring somebody, I tend to like to work with podcasters, but I don't tend to be their ideal provider. So I generally help podcasters by doing interviews, by, recording webinars for other people. And I have a couple things I would love to tell you about podcasting that would make your podcast more accessible in just a minute.
Okay.
But as far as my ideal client, I'm looking to work with people who design marketing and advertising, people who create media, whether that's podcasts or broadcast media, people who create multiple websites for other businesses, whether they do that themselves, do it using AI, or do it by selling templates or cookie cutter forms that their clients,
Okay.
customers can use, because a lot of these things, if the base model isn't accessible, then every person that they provide services to is going to have an inaccessible experience for their customers. So
Right.
those are some of the people I really want to work with. I'd love to work with people who provide the equipment and the services to podcasters, like editing, story writing for blog posts, social media promotion, those sorts of things. But so those are the clients. I really would love to work with more podcasters. And maybe someday I'll set up a group thing like some of the coaches do, where, I could work with multiple podcasters and none of them would have to invest a high amount of money for each of them, but they would have access to somebody who could help them with accessibility more so through coaching than necessarily through site evaluations. So that's a good idea.
There
I
you
know you
go.
didn't give it. I know you didn't give it to me, but sometimes when I muse to come up with my answer to a question, I come up with even better or bigger answers. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind and think that maybe there is a way I can work with podcasters, and I really do want to help them grow their audiences. And so, as far as accessibility for podcasters, the first thing is you want to make sure you're creating inclusive content. And one of the biggest challenges in this area is that most podcasters record with video and audio, or they record video and then they extract the audio. But 75 to 85% of the people who will consume the podcast are only listening to it. So basically,
Oh,
you are creating a show as if people can see, but three-quarters or more of that audience is blind, just like me.
yeah. Yeah.
So I tell podcasters what you really need to do is to try to include more audio description or narration of what's going on during your podcast. So the first thing is to do an audio description, and I will do mine just so people have an idea of what I'm talking about. I am a 59-year-old white Caucasian male. I'm a large man with medium length brown curly hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a burgundy colored button down shirt with a black tie. And I'm sitting in a kitchen chair in my bedroom, which also doubles as my recording space. And I have retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, which results in me having almost no functional vision. That would be my audio description. And so that way, the person listening now knows a little bit more about the person that he is or she is listening to. And then
Wow.
during, yeah, and then during the podcast, if something unusual happens where there's a big expression, maybe a laugh like I sometimes do that needs to be explained so that people don't think I'm offending somebody, or, a violent shake of the head, or maybe you have a really cute doggy or cat who thinks that at some point during your podcast, they're supposed to be on camera,
That's right.
uh,
Have
any of
had
these
that
things.
happen.
Yeah. I used to have it happen all the time and I miss it, but that's a whole nother story. But the more you can bring your audience into your podcast, your person, your background, your guests, your physical expressions at key points, not everything needs to be described, but at key points, you can build a stronger connection with your audience and do it more quickly. And people who feel more invested in a show are more likely to listen to it, to subscribe to it, to rate, review, and share it. And so I honestly feel like creating inclusive content, which includes audio descriptions as well as closed captions, transcripts, um, and all of those things is an important part of growing an audience for a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, you brought up a lot of points that I hadn't even thought about. And on some of the podcasts, especially the ones where we're talking about books, we also talk about what's going on around us. Like the other day, someone's husband walked behind her. So she pointed out, that's my husband walking behind me there, going out the door. I have this whole room full of things. Like I've got a reindeer sitting on top of my bookshelf. And that's the reindeer that inspired the story, Goat the Reindeer Rides in an Airplane. Beside me, I've got I don't know what you'd call it. So it's a stand that holds books like for music, but on it, I have the three books I have, the Giving book, because we just released volume 4 of the Giving book. So I've got a paper of that, and you can see that they're bestsellers. Have the books and the awards behind me. Have a wallpaper of a library in Germany, and it's just amazing. It has arches in it. It's like you're looking down the hallway in between the arches with all the books on it. I really like it. I've got a picture of that always gets noticed, and I don't know if it's because it's directly above my head, but there's a photo of my sister, my brother, and my other sister when they were very young. In fact, my sister, just older than me, I think was only about 2 years old in the photo, and then my brother, who would have been 3, and then my sister, who would have been 5. And somebody asked me, "Why aren't you in the photo?" I go, "Well, I wasn't even a twinkle in my father's eye yet."
Now,
But
see, these are things you could sprinkle in through each episode because there's a lot
okay.
there to describe. And of course, when you change things, then, like if you bring something new, I'm assuming the reindeer isn't going to be there after the first of the year.
It might be.
It
Just
might
kind of
be,
keep it
yeah,
there
okay.
because
So,
it's part of the books I have.
well, we've got to do that product placement stuff. It ain't just for Hollywood.
There you go.
So
That I need to
I,
learn more on product placement. Okay.
Yeah, so I loved what you did there. I just think that you may have gone a little overboard and you may want to just
Okay.
sprinkle it through, just sprinkle some of it through the episodes or say like for example, if the guest notices it and it's natural to talk about it, then describe it because not
Yes.
everybody has seen it. And if your if
Okay.
your back if your background changes, if you decide I'm going to tear all this stuff down and start over, then of course you would want to do a new description. If you have a special outfit, if there's something new or something that's going on or something that's happened that can be determined by looking at the screen, if they could see the screen, then those are great topics for audio descriptions that can make that stronger connection with your audience.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you for that advice. That's great.
Well, I try to do what I can. I feel like if I know stuff, I have an obligation to tell others. So that's all I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good. It's we have all of this knowledge, and it's good to share with each other because that way we're lifting each other up. We're helping each other get better. And that's what I think it's all about. It's not a competition of, oh, I don't want to support them because I don't want them to get bigger. It's like, well, I want to support them and help them get bigger because they're going to remember me. And if they don't, well, that's okay. I'm still going to get bigger on my own.
Well, I personally have found over the many years I've been out here online working in various types of businesses that I'm much better served with an abundance mindset and not
Yes.
thinking that when somebody else gets an opportunity, it means that there are less of those opportunities for me. I have a great friend named Ryan Bedolf, who's known as the blogger from Paradise. He once said that for coaches or authors or speakers to worry about there not being enough would be like two plankton at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, thinking maybe there ain't enough water to go around.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For those who don't know, because I've got a background in oceanography, slight background in it. The Mariana Trench is like the deepest in the ocean, the deepest place. So yeah, and the fact that you called them plankton because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Huh. You should
Yeah.
call my show the plankton.
Well, I have to thank my friend. I pretty much repeated it the way he said it to me. So,
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Um, yeah, so gosh, you got into this world, and I hope you don't mind me getting a little personal. But you got into this world that uses, I think, a lot of sight, and yet you don't have a lot of sight. How do you navigate through it?
well, when it comes to navigating the online world, having a computer that uses a screen reader helps, but it only helps me as much as the webmasters building the apps and the websites out there allow it to help me. But yeah, it is challenging a lot of the time. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about minimizing the amount of things on a website, it takes me longer to get through things, to take actions, to buy stuff. And I really hate websites like Amazon and Walmart and eBay because there's just
Just going to
way too
ask you
many
about
choices.
those.
Yeah, just way too many choices to sift through and way so much information for each one. And what's really bad is a lot of those products, they either don't have information on whether or not a blind person would be able to use them, or
Yeah.
if they have it, there's no way to know if it actually means what they think it means because I'm on like my fifth or sixth LED lamp, and every single one of them said that it would be accessible, that I could control it from my computer or my phone, or that it would make noises to let me know when I'm changing the color or changing the intensity. And every single one of them has failed to live up to accessibility.
Oh, wow.
And that's the thing when you're searching for a product and you're looking to make an expensive purchase, especially, it's hard to find websites that give me and other people like me the confidence that the decision we're making is a truly informed decision that we can have confidence in.
Yeah. Wow, that's really important to bring up. Another thing I want to ask you is, do you have a team? Do you have people around you that either you're coaching or you're guiding or that are helping you in your business, or are you part of a team where you're all working together? And the reason I ask this is a lot of times entrepreneurs are by themselves. And they're doing their own websites, they're doing their own newsletters, they're doing all of this stuff themselves because either they're starting out or they haven't brought in enough income yet to hire enough people to do all the things that they do, and they're getting there, or they've gotten so busy they need people to do this, but they're not sure how to put it together as a team. So, do you have a team you work with?
Well, I have a team, but most of them are people who I have met throughout my online work. So,
Okay.
the woman who edited my books, Lorraine Regularly, lives in Canada, and I met her because I was doing some blog commenting, I think probably 10 years ago now. And she visited my website and noticed there was a problem. She reached out and offered to help me fix it.
Oh, wow.
I graciously accepted her offer. We were able to figure out what the problem was. It was for some reason the app I was using to create my blog post was putting my images in the middle of the text instead of
Oh,
either above or below or beside it. And people, they get frustrated really quickly and they leave your
yeah,
website. So
yeah.
she reached out, and then when I was trying to talk myself into publishing my first book, she basically took the decision away from me and helped me go through the process of getting it to the Amazon and to KDP, because back then there were two different websites and two different processes.
Right.
Um, I have several people who provide emotional support to me. I have one woman who just recently moved near my house, which is really cool. Her name is Adrienne Smith, and I like to call her my blogging mama because she taught me everything I know about relationship building online and how to use blog commenting and non-salesy emails to build connections with people that can lead to opportunities. Those are a couple. My business mentor is actually the guy to first hire me as an accessibility expert. His name is Alex Sanfilippo, and he actually owns Podmatch, where I believe we connected.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, so he and I shared the Pechacucha stage at Podfest Expo in 2019, and when it was over, he followed me out into the hallway and accosted me because he wanted to meet me and become friends with me before I got away. And
Yeah.
he was really impressed with the talk I gave on the importance of interdependence, or asking for help and accepting help from others. And that started our friendship. And in 21, when he needed help for one of his websites, he reached out to me and hired me. But he's also a business mentor. He's been very instrumental in getting me to focus in on just one field of endeavor, because I'm one of those people, because of necessity, I have managed to have the ability to do a lot of things at a competency level.
Yeah.
And his real thing has been getting me to focus on my genius levels and trying to ignore the shiny objects that come to me from my past, such as people wanting help selling a ride, or people wanting help getting on a podcast, or even, writing that next book, because right now the time just isn't good for me to do that next book. So he's been instrumental in getting me to focus and to as I've really concentrated more on everything having something to do with accessibility. My career is really taking off over the last 2, 3 years in a way that it didn't the previous 12 or 13 years, which, mentioned it earlier when I was talking to you about gurus, because so
Yeah.
I've been out here a long time before this last couple of years of Alex's tutelage got me to where I'm at now. But I'm also really good friends with his wife, Alicia, who was an award-winning brick and mortar business owner before she sold her business to be
Wow.
part of Podmatch. And she is great at emotional support. She's one of my best friends. And every time I every time I hear they're going to be at an event that I could possibly come up with a reason, talk myself into finding a way to be there, I think about it, because it's just great being around them.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are just lots of people who, when I've had a problem or a question, I just reach out to people and I go, "Hey, I'm Max Ivy. I'm the blind blogger. This is what I'm doing, and I just want to know if maybe you could help me do it, or maybe I could do something to help you. Maybe we could educate each other, collaborate with each other. Maybe we could just encourage and lift each other up." So I
Oh, I
have a
like
team.
that.
I have a team, but none of them are paid, except occasionally when I have to have them do stuff that is their profession.
Right.
If I ask somebody to do something that they do for a living, then I pay for it. But
Yes.
there's a lot of things that people I've been blessed to connect with over time. Uh, they don't do that as their profession, but they do it as their passion, or they do it to support Max. So, um, and I would love to share how I managed to do this, because I think one of the biggest problems, and you basically said it in the intro to that question, is business owners are by themselves. And some of that is by necessity, but a lot of that is because business owners think that they're supposed to be doing it all by themselves, you know, which is,
Interesting.
which is one of the most dangerous myths in the world, because most anything that is challenging, that takes a lot of effort, knowledge, ability, skills, resources, is not something you're going to accomplish smoothly or quickly by yourself. And I like to remind people, look at the television series and movies. Most all of the really good stories revolve around ensembles.
Yes. Yep. That's
So,
true.
yeah. So I have this expression I like to use to help business owners. I tell them to think about putting the focus on the other person and not thinking about yourself so much. And here's my expression. When you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received. And I like to say this one twice because it's really important to me. When you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received.
So true. You know, when I was, I'm just going to say much younger, um, somebody said, don't refuse a gift from somebody else because you are robbing them of the joy of giving, of doing something for you from their heart. And it's like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Not that I ever refused a gift. We were just talking. And when somebody offers to help because they see you're struggling or there's something going on there, be gracious enough to say, yes, I would like some help instead of trying to always do it all yourself. And that was a great way you put it, Max. I really, really
You
like
know,
that.
I love how you just said this, and I almost wonder if we were connected at some point earlier in our young lives and forgot that we knew each other because what you just talked about is what I call the graduate level of asking for help because most people have trouble asking for help or for opportunities. They think asking for help makes them look weak. They
Yeah.
think asking for opportunities makes them look egotistical. But most people are much better at asking than they are at accepting. And when you offer to help somebody who doesn't know that they asked you, the ego just jumps out and it's like on full alert and the teeth are bared and the claws are out because it's like, who the heck do you think you are? Because I'm doing just fine here. I don't need your help. Now go help somebody else who really needs it. So I loved how you mentioned graciousness because I often talk about graciousness in having help or having opportunities offered to you because okay, let's say you don't understand that you asked these people without asking, and I'll talk about that in a minute. If you really don't think you need their help, then be gracious about it because the way you respond to that offer is going to determine whether or not that person offers to help the next person.
Oh,
So
oh,
if you don't want my help, you don't think you need my help, fine, just say it, but say it politely. Do it with
yes.
grace and style and be a lady or a gentleman about it. So, but the thing is as you mentioned, we ask all the time without thinking about it. We do it through prayer, through meditation. We
Yeah.
do it with words we don't notice are seeping out through our social media posts or our emails to people that we know that know us well. They seep out during our daily conversations, and there are people who care about you who will notice. There are also people who are very intuitive and pay attention that will notice. And a lot of these people think, I see somebody struggling. I'm going to offer to help them. And so when somebody does offer, please be gracious about it. It's okay to say no, but it's also okay to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, wow, that was very well put. I appreciate you doing that because I think sometimes um we feel like uh there is something wrong if we have to ask for help, or we feel like, yeah, if we're asking for help, then that means I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to look bad. And that's not what it is at all. We're all there trying to help each other get further ahead. And if somebody sees something that maybe you just need a little adjustment or a little different perspective, um, there's nothing wrong with receiving that. And you can ask, or say, yeah, I could need some help with this. This is what I think I need help with. Is this what you were thinking? And go from there. Um, and and maybe you don't even realize that you do need help with something, but someone who's been doing it for a longer time says, I really don't want to butt into your business, but do you know if you tweak it just a little bit this way, it's just going to go so much smoother. You're going to be able to just go right through this and it won't be a problem. And and it's like, yeah, I would like to have that help. And I've had people come up to me and offer. And fortunately, I've gone through enough stupid times in my life, and that's calling me stupid half the time because it's like, no, I got to do it myself. I can't ask anybody else, you know? And and it's like I know when to say, hopefully I've learned when to say, yes, I'll take your advice. I'll listen to your wisdom because you can take it, you can hear it, and then you decide whether you're going to do anything with it or not. But at least
Right.
you've given the courtesy to listen to what they have to say.
Right. This actually happened to me at a speaking event in Houston in 2018. I had just given a really good talk on overcoming adversity for the local chapter of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And the talk is called Life is a River, Overcoming Adversity by Continuing to Move Forward. And I generally sing when I talk, so I usually finish by doing the second or first verse of The River by Garth Brooks. At least I did until I started writing my own songs. And so I give this great talk and I walk off and people are excited and people are coming up to me wanting to tell me how good I was, wanting to ask me questions, wanting to get my email address. And there's this one woman, just, I mean, effervescent, energy off the chart. She walks up to me and she goes, you know, Max, you gave a great talk and you got a lot of wonderful life experiences. She said, but you know, I'm an image consultant. And I believe that if you would let me help you with your image, that you would make a lot more money and a lot more progress in your career as a professional speaker if you would just take my advice and improve your hair and what you wear. And I want to help people understand this. The day she met me, because I was was mostly broke, let's call it cash poor for lack of a better expression. Um, I'm wearing I'm wearing blue jeans, a black embroidered dress shirt, and tennis shoes. I've got hair, my hair is down to my shoulders. It's a mix of brown and gray and silver. And it just, you know, one person told me that my before picture looks like somebody you'd cross to the other side of the street just to make sure that they don't try to steal your purse.
Oh,
And then after she worked with me, you know, she taught me about shopping at thrift stores in good neighborhoods. She told me what kind of, how to dye my hair and how to comb my hair. And right now I need a haircut. So if she sees this, so I apologize. I apologize, Chelsea. Um, and she taught me how to tie a tie so that I don't have to buy clip-ons or have other people tie them for me. So she
oh,
did a lot
wow.
for me. But you know, she came up and she said it, and at that moment, it would have been just so easy to go, I'm riding this high of just having crushed this talk. I don't need your help. But
Yeah,
as you say, I was smart enough to say, of course, is there anything I can do for you as long as we're going to be talking about my
there you
image? And
go.
it turned out she wanted to start creating a video vault, a website where she could park tutorials for people and offer them on a subscription basis. Now that didn't actually happen because COVID came along and then she got some other opportunities. But before I knew about that, I said, sure, if it sounds like it would be okay. And we did work together and it was kind of, some of it was kind of weird because after the first day that she worked with me and I had my new suit on, she had a photographer, so I had to let him put makeup on me to take the pictures. That was really weird. But you know, this is just one of those things. She came up to me. It would have been so easy to get mad or to say no or to have, just have that kind of, oh, let me just please get away from this person. But
Yeah,
smart enough not to. And so that's where the graciousness comes in. And so remember, how you respond to people who offer to help is going to affect how many other people they'll try to help.
yes, yes. And I see we're out of time,
That happens to me a lot.
but yeah, it does on my show. We just keep talking. I didn't even get to hear you sing. You've got to come back.
Well, I can still sing. It's not like I got to get a band or nothing.
Okay, well, why don't you close this out with a song? How's that?
All right. So I had this song in my heart and thought it could be great. That put more pressure on me, making me want to wait. Then I took some good advice and sang it anyway. This song couldn't change any lives if I kept saying someday. 'Cause you'll never have enough courage. You'll never have enough time. You'll never have enough money. You'll never have enough spine. Just do it as good as you can and do it better the next time. 'Cause if you're waiting on that someday, you'll be waiting the rest of your life.
Oh, thank you. That was really good. Thank you, our audience. I hope you really enjoyed today's show, that you got a lot of value out of it. And we'll see you next time on Wisdom on the Front Porch.
Thank you for joining us today on Wisdom on the Front Porch with your host, Ellis Kirkpatrick. You can find us on our website, wisdomonthefrontporch.com, see previous episodes of the podcast, and view issues of the magazine. Did you know you can submit questions, leave reviews, or suggest topics? You can also tell us where your favorite front porch location is and what it means to you. We hope you gain value and insight from today's or previous talks. We appreciate your support for us so we can continue to provide value and expertise to you and others. Subscribe to Wisdom on the Front Porch magazine and join in next week when we bring you another great insight into the world of entrepreneur culture and lifestyle. Make today a great day. Always believe that something wonderful is going to happen.